Alright, hey guys. So we're back again. This will be my last stream for this project. Taking a look at where we left off, right? We had something like this. Once again, I've done just a little bit just out of the stream, just to kind of polish it up. So the biggest difference being that where I left this last time, instead of these kind of like metal sort of stitches, I was doing kind of like more thready stitches, and just from a distance they weren't really kind of reading particularly well, right? A little bit too thin, a little bit kind of boring. Taking a look at the concept, it's a little bit hard to see what's going on, but there's like a potentially an indication of metal there, so I just decided, hey, let's just make it like a metal stitch. I think that looks a little bit kind of cooler. So that's really all that's different from what we saw last time. So it's a little bit of sculpting left to do. You know, if we take a look at the detail that I've got going on with the scar, and the sort of kind of detail we can kind of make out in the concept, you know, it's not quite the same. So I probably would like to go in and maybe make that a little bit grosser, a little bit lumpier. But we can do that a little bit later. Rather than just kind of, you know, fidgeting with the base sculpt, what I'm going to do today is kind of just take this to the next step, just to kind of go over doing that, and show that off. And so what that will be is looking at how we can maybe do a bit of a base texture and get some like pore details started on this. So I'll go through kind of like a pretty cool, easy sort of process for at least getting some decent sort of base pores going. So I'm going to drop my model down a little. Let's just put it down to like level 2, or you know, let's go with level 2, right? And we'll export this into Maya. So I'm just going to come down before I export. I'm just going to turn off this group button, because if we've got polygroups, that can kind of muck things up for us. Let's create a folder in here, and I'm going to call this folder xnormal, because that's a program that we're going to use in a second. So let's open that up, and let's export this as demon head, right? And we'll come over into Maya. So we've got Maya here. We'll import our model. Alright, so I'm just going to double check just to make sure we've still got our UVs and everything, so that's all good. We're going to need especially the face there. That's what I'm going to be focusing on today. So what I'm going to do is to kind of get a base pores going is I've got these textures here, which come from a website called Texture XYZ, which is like high resolution scans of people's faces. So I've got this like woman face, right? So this pack comes with like a diffuse texture, and we've also, if we were to go across, we've got this displacement texture. So it's got displacement detail for pores, as you can kind of see. So what I'm going to do is just in Maya, first of all, I'm just going to quickly just open up our properties so I can find out how big this image is. So I might just bring that over there so I can see it. And I'm going to create a polygon plane And what we'll do is just in our height and width here, we'll put the dimensions of this texture by 5089. Okay, we'll rotate that 90 degrees, and then let's scale it down. And we want to get it just kind of roughly size of the face. So that's fine for the moment. We'll export that back into ZBrush. Alright, so in ZBrush we'll import our plane. Okay, it looks as if I've exported that with our head. So hold on, let's just must have hit expel all instead of export selection. So let's just, there we go. We'll pen that into the scene over here. Okay, and what I'll do is come over to texture, gonna hit import, and gotta find where I've got those textures. So they're in a different location at the moment. So let's just copy that file path, and we'll grab our albedo. So let's bring that into ZBrush, and what we'll have to do is just flip that in V, just due to the way that ZBrush recognizes UVs. Let's grab that image plane, let's just bring that closer to our model. Okay. And we'll quickly just go to our texture map, and we'll append that image to that plane. So I can see this face, and what I want to do is just scale our image plane a little bit, just kind of roughly line it up with some of the features of our model. So it doesn't have to be too close, but if we get it a little bit closer than what it currently is, that should help this next step. So it's kind of just roughly line the lips up and the eyes up, and the nostrils, just looks like that is roughly about right. That's going to make that easier if we change that from ghost. Okay, so something like that. What I need to do is we need to subdivide this plane. At the moment it's pretty low resolution, so we need to turn off the smooth modifier, otherwise the dimensions of our plane kind of shift a little, and I just want to keep that as it is. So we'll turn that off, and we'll just divide this plane a few times. Now the more we divide this plane, because what we're going to do is we're going to use a little plugin called ZWrap to wrap this image plane around our model. The more divisions, the better the wrap, but the longer it will take. So I think 6 should be enough, but potentially higher, just be aware it could take longer. So I think what we need to do is, I can't remember, I think we need this one to be above our head. And we can probably make that a little higher resolution for this process. So let's just put that up to 5. And let's just quickly, we'll save this just to make sure it's saved in case it crashes. Okay, once that's saved, we'll come up into ZWrap. Alright, so we should get the plane showing up on the left and the head on the right. There we go. I'm just gonna sync our views so that we rotate together. And alright, what we need to do is we need to place points on our image here and on our model. So we're telling the plane, like, you know, the nostril here correlates with the nostril there, and the eyelid with the eyelid up there. So I'll turn sync views off now, and we'll just start plotting out some rough guides. Now, we might not get, like, this doesn't have to be perfect, but it's easier if it is vaguely, you know, as good as we can get it. We can do some adjustments a little bit later. Also making sure that we're... Geez, grab my pen and do this, that way it might be quicker. Make sure we're doing, you know, one there and then one there so that they all match up by numbers. And what we want to do is just try as best we can to kind of roughly get these to match, you know, where they kind of theoretically should be on our model. Now, potentially we don't want to put too many because that kind of will restrict its ability to wrap properly. But around the lips, I kind of want to try and just make sure that those points are hit, just to make clean up less bothersome. Now, the nose, right, is an area that's kind of not do a perfect job. Because it's quite compressed here compared to the 3D model, but we'll just try our best to get this to line up. Now, like, because she's got these elf ears, it's probably not going to work mostly up there, so that will be something we'll probably have to do manually. But that's all good. Eyebrows. Now the eyebrows, she's got, you know, quite funky eyebrows, so they're not going to match up 100% to what we're going to be doing. But this is just to kind of speed this up, right? Like, rather than doing all this manually by either sculpting them manually or using alphas, it's going to give us pretty good results, especially around here, and then we can yeah, manually clean up and project our own details in the areas where we need them. Now we might just put one there as well. All right, let's take a look at our ears. So yeah, that top portion is not going to really line up just due to the pointy demon elf kind of ear we've got, but we can probably get some of this to work. So now, just once again, just trying to line up rough points that correlate. Now, like the ear with the Z wrap, especially somewhere that you probably do need more points than other points on the plane, especially if you want to get a good result. But there's always going to be some level of cleanup with the ear here using this technique. So yeah, I think usually, especially around here, right, where getting as close as we can helps. But yeah, once again, we're not going to be able to do that anyway. So we'll just, you know, kind of come up here, and then we'll try and figure out in a second what we're going to do up and around this area here, because yeah, this isn't gonna really work up there, but we'll try our best to kind of get, yeah, this to at least kind of stick. So we have to do the other side. Now, like, you can turn on, like, a mirror, right? But because this image of the face here, it's unwrapped, like, this model's symmetrical in terms of where the ears are, but in reality, most people aren't that, like, completely symmetrical. And you can kind of see, you know, with this image, if we have symmetry, that it's probably going to be off a little, so I'm doing it manually. Alright, so let's come in and do the same over here. Try and roughly kind of do the same amount as I did on the other side, just to try and keep the results relatively similar, but I didn't really count where and how many I put down, so I'll just kind of guesstimate. But yeah, I'm not too fussed with this at the moment, just because I know we're going to get errors with the ear regardless. So if I have to do a little bit more cleanup, you know, it's not the end of the world. Just try and do this as quick as we can, because it's a bit of a boring sort of process. Alright, let's just go with that, roughly, something like that maybe. I think I had one like up here, didn't I? Okay, so that's probably close enough. Now, what we can do is we can come up here and save these points in case we need to do this again because it crashes. So let's just, in our folder that we created before, call that, it's just a text document with coordinates. We'll call that plane, so that's where the plane dots are living. And this is going to be head, so if we do need to load those up, we can. So once we've done that, we come over to wrapping, right? And there are, under the preferences, the amount of like iterations. So usually the default are pretty good. Now I'm gonna hit start wrapping, but that might take a minute or two to actually complete. I'm not sure. No, we can't use that brush while that runs, so we'll have to wait for that, unfortunately. So at this stage here, there is a bit of just kind of waiting for computers to do what computers do. Because after this, we've got to set up and use a program called XNormal. And that's also going to require a bit of waiting. But the benefit is when we use XNormal, we can do some like hair sculpting while we wait. Now, hopefully that's wrapping still, because usually it's got a progress bar. So I suppose, you know, this would be a good time for questions. Now, actually, what we could do is potentially to try and speed this up. Let's see if we can actually cancel that. Because what we could do is maybe reduce the amount of iterations on that. So let's go back and restart that process. Now, because we saved those points, I can just reload them up. And just to speed things up, I might change the amount of iterations we're doing. So let's change that to 2. That should give us still pretty good results. Oh, hit the wrong button. It's a little bit confusing there. Let's try that again. Okay, so yeah, done is when it's finished. We want to hit start wrapping. slightly concerned that we're not getting a progress bar. That's what I'm pretty sure we should be getting. We'll leave it for a minute and just see what happens. If not, there is another way we can essentially do what we're trying to do, just requires a bit more manual work on our end, yeah, on us, so. Wondering if we need to bring that closer. Let's just quickly try and bring that plane closer. I'm good, man. How are you? Alright, so we'll let that just run now. And if it doesn't, I mean, it should be working. I'm just would have expected a progress bar. Yeah, potentially the amount of subdivisions could also be actually that's not too dense, so. Give it 5 minutes, and if we don't see a progress bar or some indication that it's doing stuff, we'll go straight into Substance Painter and do it that way. Which is fine, just means a lot more projection on our part. No, there we go. Cool. So it's not giving us a progress bar, but that's fine. It's, oh no, there we go. As long as I know that it's doing something, I'm happy to wait. So yeah, so it's just using those points to guide the plane, and it's just, yeah, wrapping it around. So what we'll get is that texture, and because that texture and the displacement line up, we'll be able to project that texture from our plane onto our model in XNormal, and then we can use that as a base to displace and create a diffuse map. So it's a cool little trick. It's just, yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those points in 3D where we're just waiting for the computer to do its thing. But what you can do, right, is, you know, if we were to come into Maya, this head here, right, like I've remeshed this model and I've given it UVs. Now, like the point of that Z wrap is to allow you to like use pre-existing base meshes to wrap around a like a sculpt, right? So it's done in film as a way of like, you know, quickly remeshing a like scan data of a person. So if you're doing like digital doubles, right, you get scan data of an actor, and then instead of remeshing it by hand, you use like a pre-made base mesh and wrap it around there. And if you've done that once before, right, then you can potentially already have your UVs and your displacement and diffuse texture already kind of set up, and you can then have that as like a preset that you wrap around generic heads, and you can reuse the displacement, you know, without having to go through this process. This is a little bit different because she is unique in terms of the ears. Like, I remeshed her mostly from scratch. I think I did start with a bit of a base mesh and I Z-wrapped it and then modified it. But because of the ears, like, she doesn't have a pre-existing texture that I could reuse. But bit of a wait, but like if you are doing this a lot, you can have a lot of this stuff kind of set up already, which makes, you know, doing multiple generic characters kind of quick. So do you find less points? So what you want is, you don't want to constrict the wrap, especially if you're, say, doing like putting a pre-existing mesh over another one. You don't want to restrict it too much by putting too many points where it can't wrap efficiently. But you do need enough in areas like the lips and eyes, so it knows where, you know, the features are going to line up. So it's doing, so we've got it only set to 2 subdivisions, so we're halfway. But if you had like 3, you got to probably slightly more accurate, but take a little bit longer. But what we will do is, once we've actually had it wrapped right, is we can go through and do some manual cleanup and reproject, and get some of the accuracy back that we're missing. If I was doing this at home and I could just go away and walk the dog or something, probably would have just left that at 3 subdivision levels, because yeah, I can step away from the computer. So yeah, hopefully, you know, it's not the most interesting thing to watch on stream, but for you guys who have kind of followed along or are interested in this step, rather, like, I did think about kind of setting all this up in advance, but decided just to do it on stream so that at least you guys can see this technique, because it's kind of cool if you're not familiar with it. Just thinking what I could do outside. Yeah, I don't know, just chat to you guys if anyone wants to ask any other questions. How is my dog? My dog is the same. Yeah. He's quiet. Doesn't do anything really. But he's good. He's getting a little old, and his joints are starting to get a little bit less than ideal, so he's slowed down a fair bit. Not that he was ever overly active. Yeah, I've always got something sort of half finished, so I've got a bunch of things that need to be, like, I need to get back to. So, like, this is something that I'm planning to take to completion because I think it's a cool concept. So I guess this is a project. There was a digital portrait I started last year, doing it was like Bruce Campbell. I was doing Bruce Campbell as like a digital portrait, and then I broke my wrist and I couldn't really work on it. So that kind of got forgotten about. So I need to go back into it because I was pretty happy with how that was going. And that was a project where I was experimenting with like doing like paws by hand, like sculpting my own paws. Trying to get like, I was gonna use like HD geometry to get really high resolution. But yeah, it just kind of got forgotten about because after I broke my wrist, I just couldn't really do anything, and it just got forgotten as I've moved on to other things. So I've got to go back and do that. I was doing a character digital portrait inside of Unreal as well, which is basically finished, but I'm really bad at getting to that last stage and then getting distracted, or like, because I guess I prefer maybe the sculpting than the fiddling with the final image. So I've got a habit of getting inspired to start sculpting something else. So there's that I've got to finish as well, which was looking pretty cool, because you can do some really detailed, realistic sculpts inside of, not sculpts, but like skin and cool sort of models inside of Unreal now. If you guys have seen the metahuman stuff. So I've got to do that one as well. Is this normally a process to texture, or do you do poly painting then rendering in Photoshop? So no, I don't do a lot of poly painting. Like with poly painting, you know, you've got to really kind of get it more or less kind of right. It's not as forgiving for tweaking, and one thing I like to do is tweak like opacity layers. So most of my texturing is done in Substance Painter, which is where this will end up eventually. The benefit of doing this, because like I could create a completely unique texture inside of Substance Painter, but doing it this way just gives you like a thing to paint over the top of. In terms of rendering, no, like doing it inside of Photoshop, that's more for like concept art. My intention for this is to do like a more production ready model. So I'll use this to get a base displacement and base color map. Then I'll take it into Substance Painter and clean up the displacement, and then finish the texture in Substance Painter. Bring the displacement back into ZBrush and apply it to the model, and then do some extra details and clean up in ZBrush. And then I will export that out as a displacement map, and then inside of Maya I'll use Arnold to do a render. So that's what I'm planning to do. So one of the reasons this is taking a bit of time is just the amount of points on this plane. So might have been smarter to have left that at subdivision 5, but yeah, the results we'll get will be slightly better. But we're nearly done, so hopefully not too big of a deal. Yeah, so what you've got to do with potential projects, because like doing 3-hour sculpts is great for just practice, right? Do something in 3 hours and then go and do something else. But if you want to actually have a portfolio piece, you've got to just decide on something that you want, and then you have to just kind of brute force your way to the end sometimes, especially if it's like, I find it can be hard to finish a piece if it's not for a job, right? Because when you got a job, you've given deadlines, and there's the carrot of being paid that keeps you going. Personal projects are hard to do. Yeah, you just got to make up your mind and stick with it. But especially for like these sorts of like digital portraits, like really good results, a lot of kind of backwards and forwards and tweaking, so it is a commitment to do. Oh cool, what mentorship are you doing? By Sir McLeroy. Cool. I'm looking at his art station at the moment. What's the looks like he does a lot of like what are these 3D prints? Yeah, his stuff looks good. Yay, so there we go. Cool. So once that's done, hit done. Yeah, so like if we'd done that with a subdivision of 3, potentially a little bit of a better result, but not expecting it to be too bad. So if we look at that, right, like it's kind of in the rough shape of our face, yeah? So there's a couple of errors that we've got. So what we might do is quickly we'll hit morph target and store a morph target just in case we need to adjust some points. Otherwise what we'll do is just kind of try and clean up our results a little bit. So you can see one of the things we've got is potentially maybe the eyelid kind of sitting roughly in the wrong spot. But I suspect we should get enough detail up there, so I'm not going to fuss with that too much. But what we will do is just kind of come in and just fix up any of these major areas that are really kind of broken. Like in and around our ears here. And we'll just clean these up. And then we'll do another like projection inside of ZBrush just to try and push our detail where it should be. Because I suspect we can get slightly better results. Although, like looking at the lips and stuff, it's not looking overly bad. And what we can do, like in terms of doing our projection, right? Like, let's subdivide that a little bit more. I'm gonna push that down, and let's project our head down there, right? Actually, before we do that, let's morph target. And we'll just project. Now, I might not spend too much time doing super cleanup on this, just due to the fact that I'm doing this live, right? But like the more or less, it's just to get us a good kind of base to work from. So if it's a little bit off, that's all right. Let's try and just push the ear back a little. But like the ear's already kind of fucked just due to the fact that it's a elf ear, so there's going to be cleanup in there regardless. So I'm not going to fuss too much, but like by the looks of it, our like main area that I care about, which is, you know, this front portion of the face, looks like we've done gotten a pretty good result. But yeah, if we were to spend the time just fussing, we can maybe get slightly better result when it comes to our X-normal portion. So I'll spend just a second just fixing that up. One thing that we might want to do is if we take a look, right, like the nose is an area that often really struggles, right? So if we take a look at our texture, I just want to make sure, you know, like I've got a bit of the nose kind of maybe not sitting quite in the right spot, so could try and just move that out a little and then reproject that to make sure that the corner of the nose is sitting in the right spot. I'll just do one more project and then I'm not going to worry too much about cleaning that up. Just, yeah, otherwise it's a bit boring. Okay, so yeah, we've got pretty decent result, right? So this inside of the nose is going to be kind of screwy regardless of what we do. But the lips are looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is we've already exported out subdivision 2 of the head. So let's export out our plane. Now I'm just going to make sure that's turned off just to avoid any errors. So let's call this, say, plane head, and export that. Alright, and with that done, we can open up X-normal. So the reason I'm using X-normal is it's a little bit of an old program, but it's got this really handy ability to project a texture onto another model. So if we come and in our high here, add our plane head, right, and then assign a texture. So if we just quickly grab, say, the diffuse and load that there, and then in here load in our let's USB stream, do the head, right, and then our baking option here, we've got the ability to bake this base texture. So in resolution, ideally we want to do 8K just to keep the quality high, but that will take a little bit longer. So just for this demo, and I might do this separately at home, going to do that at 4K just so it's not taking too long. 32 anti-aliasing, we should pop that up a little bit. And then let's choose an output location. So what we'll do is it's going to export that out as a PNG. So we generate that. What it's going to do is so what it's going to do is, because that low poly plane is sitting in the same place as the model with our UVs, it's going to project it from one mesh to the other. So potentially this isn't taking too long, so we potentially could do that at 8K, which I reckon, considering that that's actually what I would want. Ideally, we might just see if we can do that so I don't have to do it again later. Anti-aliasing, ideally you'd want that at 4, but I think that will actually really bump up our time. So let's try this just at 8K. And hopefully Let's just see. Potentially putting it up to 8K is gonna increase our time quite a bit. No, I reckon we should be alright. So we'll do this one, and then we'll do our displacement. And what you can then do, right, is especially if you want to use the diffuse map, is either take it to Mari, which is probably a little bit quicker, but I don't love Mari as a program. I find its interface a little bit gross, so I'll do it inside a Substance Painter, but it is slightly a longer process to do in Substance, because what we'll have to do is extract in our displacement our maps into the different layers that it's going to pump out for us. Yeah, so I mean, it's not taking too long, but you can see already that doing it 8K is slightly slower than 4K, but not too bad, really. Looks creepy as all get out. But what we can do is, once this bakes out, we'll set up the displacement, and I'll go through putting this, like we can assign this inside of ZBrush just to kind of quickly see how it fits on the UVs. And if you're trying to do like a realistic skin, right, like we've got a good diffuse base. Now with our texture, like she's kind of undead and pale and a bit gross, so this really is going to be, in this case, like a base. We'll have to desaturate her and add in extra kind of gross sort of details to make her look like a concept. If you ever want to do a color map by hand, there's a kind of a pretty good little breakdown. That one's not bad, but there was a live presentation. Here we go. So they don't actually go like step by step with the texturing process, but they've got like a model that they kind of just break down the layers. And if you're familiar enough with Substance Painter, you can follow along pretty well as they go through and kind of go through painting a skin texture by default. But like I said, you know, it's not like a step by step. It's kind of a, this is my layer, this is how it's done. Do you know what we will do is, once this saves out, I think just for the moment we will do it at 4K on the displacement, just because this is taking a bit of time to save. So there's a lot of, like, you know, things to clean up here, but like the main part of the face isn't looking too bad. And like on her, you know, she's got hair, so we don't need to be too worried about all that looking perfect, because it's going to be hidden. depending on how far we want to take it. Releasing data, hurry up. There we go. So that's the diffuse done. So we'll come back up and we'll reset and load in our displacement map, and make the decision if we're going to swap. You know what, that didn't take too long. Let's just do that, because I don't want to have to bake it out again later, because I am planning to oh shit, do you know what we need to do though? Is make sure we don't save over what we just did. So hopefully we didn't screw that up too much. No, cool. So yeah, we definitely don't want to save over what we just pumped out. But while that's, yeah, so that's going through and it's projecting the displacement layer. So while that's doing that, let's just take a look right at our model here. If we come down, we'll go texture, import, let's just bring that in. Just load that in just to kind of get an idea, right? So that's on my model at the moment, right? So it's fitting to the UVs that we have on our model. So it's, you know, looks pretty cool already, minus the cleanup and the fact that it's showing us the face on the lower body. But for the fact that that was like, you know, 20-30 minutes of waiting, like it's given us a lot of detail without much work. And like I said, if you're using a model that's got UVs set up already and it's like more of a generic head, you can just reuse like your texture and displacement once it's finished and get yeah, a lot of very generic heads. So things like metahuman probably changes that a little bit, like for Unreal, because I guess now if you need a generic sort of human, that's kind of what that metahuman's designed for. But for like digidoubles and film, if you need to quickly generate you know, faces, having ZWrap and a preset base mesh with topology and UV can allow you just to quickly generate, you know, animatable textured characters. So I've used that to some good effects. What I'll do, I'm not sure if I've got access to it here. Let's see if I can find it. So I did a thing recently. Yeah, so this is like a digital portrait I did recently for a class here at CDW. So yeah, digital portrait of myself, self-portrait, and yeah, same sort of technique, right, where I've used this texture XYZ to get this pore detail and the base diffuse. So there's some cleanup and some custom like painting, but yeah, this technique to kind of get that pore detail. So it's a cool little trick, something right that looks pretty good. Got a grayscale version here that shows the pores, right? And they kind of just line up. So once we get our displacement, we'll jump, and actually we can probably start doing that now. Let's come in, because one thing I do need to do if I'm going to do this, right? One thing I will need Right, so this is that displacement that we're projecting, and if we look at its channels, right, it's made up of 3 different layers of displacement. We've got the big displacement, medium, and the blue. And what we need, right, if we're going to do this in not Photoshop, Substance Painter, is we do need to separate these out. So, now what we'll do is maybe we'll do it this way. Let's go File, New. We might need to just make sure that this mode comes in at grayscale. So we'll save that out. Let's save that up in here, PNG. Let's call that on a big green, so that's the green channel. We'll grab, oh sorry, that was the blue, I think, right? Was that blue? Yeah, so let's actually save that out again. Let that save. Let's come over, we'll grab our green channel. So this is just giving us like multiple layers of displacement, which is nice to have. Now, like, we can get away with just using the green channel because that's like the mid, and that's got most of the detail that we want. But I like to blend in the red and blue channels. So let's just remember that this is green and not the blue. And then we'll grab our red channel and we'll paste that there. Big red, we'll call that, just so I know, like, it's big because it's the full face and it's the different channels. Let's come back over to X normal, see if that's finished. Looks like that's finished. So what we need to do now is we need to extract those channels. So if we open up and we find our USB, and let's find our displacement. All right, we'll grab that, and that is also made up of multiple, you know, channels, right? So some multiple channels that we just saw before, but assigned to our UVs of our head. So that was, I'm pretty sure that was the blue channel. Yep. So we'll save that out, and let's just try and. Oh, let's quickly go back and find that, because that's on the network there. We'll just call that blue. All right, we'll grab our green. And then we'll grab our red channel. We'll save that out as well. Okay, so what we need to do now is I'm gonna close Maya for the moment, just to free up some resources, and we'll jump into Substance Painter. Okay, so let's launch Substance. Now, like, in terms of displacement, you could take this into ZBrush now and do your cleanup in ZBrush. But because I'm going to work with the color map, I'm going to do it in here. So we'll go File, New. Let's set that to 409. So the maximum texture document we can work in is 496. But when we export our model, we'll export it at 8K. Now those images that we brought in are 8K already, right? But we will only see them at 4K. But the thing about Substance Painter is it does know that that is 8K, even though it's only showing us that at 4K. So we don't have to be worried about that. So what I will need to do is I have this little plugin, but smart material that I'm going to use. So I'm just going to import that. And we're going to use that to kind of speed this up. So I got this off of ArtStation, right? And it's just a handy little like layer setup that's kind of designed for working with our texture XYZ data. So what we'll do is we'll import all our maps. So if we take a look, right, we've got blue, big green, big red, and we've got our ones there. So let's bring those in, define them as textures. Bring those in. Before we do anything, let's make sure we're saving. Where is that? All right, so let's bring that, save that. Okay, so if we take a look, right, once that saves, if we take a look, it should tell us what we need to do. So one of the things that we need is for this to display properly, we need to come over to our texture settings and just create a couple of custom channels. So now let's have a look. Let's have a look. Yeah, create new channels, user 0, user 2, and user 3. So let's do that. And make sure that's L16. All right, so base height, so that's all right. Okay, so if you grab our layer here, now it's been just a hot second since I last did this, so let me just try and remember. All right, so if we come down to our layer here, that's where we want to project to. So what we might need to do is actually create a new layer here. So we'll create a new fill layer. Let's call this Bakes. And we'll turn off height, roughness, metal, and normal. And in our base color, oh, actually, we need to actually import that, don't we? So let's bring in the diffuse, right? So we'll grab that one. Ooh, okay, so where did that go? Oh, that's because I saved that in a different location. So that was on my USB. So I've done a bit of a weird thing where I'm working from 2 different locations. That's all right. It's a bit silly, but let's grab that. Texture and texture. All right, so we'll throw that into our base color. Right, so that's displaying there. If we jump through our channels to say user 0, no, I think user 0 is going to be our red channel, so we'll go RGB. So we'll throw that into there. Okay, so that's not showing up. Oh, sorry. That's interesting. Why isn't that working? So that's not showing up. Why is that? Oh, that's interesting. What have I done wrong? Oh, okay. This might be... That might be my bad. Let's try this now. Base color... No, so that's not showing up. Why is that? What I'll do... I might just quickly jump into ArtStation and log in and just... Jeez. Why is that not working? That user 0 is just not showing anything, which is not what I would have expected. Okay, what is my password? Oh, alright, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly put this on break and I'll just quickly read the documentation and we'll be right back. Alright, so I'm not entirely sure why that's not working. So what we should be getting is I've got these custom channels here, right? And I've got my texture plugged into user 0. So it should theoretically show up there, but I can't for the life of me at the moment figure out why that is. So what we'll do is we'll do this, you know, there's always a different way to do this stuff. So what we'll do is we'll kind of just for the moment, we'll abandon Substance Painter, and we can do it a bit more of a manual way. So what we'll do is we'll come over into our, we'll do it in ZBrush, because why not? We can do it in here. So I'm going to push this up, right, to my highest subdivision level at the moment, which is 48 million, which is pretty good. And what we'll do is we'll, one thing I did notice, which I thought was the reason, is, which turned out not to be, so I'm not entirely sure why that's not worked, but if we do open and take a look at our layers, right, the ones I did export ended up exporting out in the wrong size. So that's alright. Just quickly save these out in the right size. So that's the green channel now. Let's file save as. And what we'll do just for today, we'll do this just with the green channel, because that's going to make things easier for this demo. And I'll figure out later on why that's not working. It's possible that I need to update Substance Painter, I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll just quickly do this inside of ZBrush. It's totally valid to do it that way. Alright, so we'll come up to our alpha and we'll import, and let's find where that's saved. So we'll just grab our green channel and bring that in as an alpha, and let's flip that. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to store a morph target just to make sure I've got something to work with. I'm going to create a new layer, right? And we'll call that green. And what we'll do is we'll project this in as a displacement. So if we come down to our displacement map, we'll grab that green channel and turn the displacement on. And we're gonna have to give it some intensity, right? So say 0.2. So with just the one that we've got, we can see that it is going to project, but it's not actually physically projected. This is essentially a bump map at the moment. So that's our intensity. So, you know, you don't want to put it too high or else it's going to look too intense. So something like 0.2 is pretty good. And with that layer recording, I'll go and in our displacement, just hit apply displacement, and that will apply it to our model, which might just take a hot second. All right, so that's now physically displaced onto our model. So if we were to turn our texture off, you can see it's applied to our model there, with errors, right? Obviously. What we'll do is we'll actually one way that we, no, do you know what? That's fine. What we'll do, one option actually, is let's quickly undo that, because it's got this background that's white. That's one of the reasons. One thing we can do to actually make this easier is just create a midpoint in our grayscale. So let's actually, we'll save that out. Again. Okay, so we need to do some cleanup now. So with that morph brush, we can come through and fix some of this up. Now actually, what we might try, I'm gonna do this again, because I don't reckon I got that grey value right. Do it again. Come through and clean up our ears. So don't want any of that down here. So the idea of doing it in Substance is just doing it as a complete displacement texture, but that, for whatever reason, isn't working. Either it's because the version is different, that tool isn't working. But, like I said, there's always a workaround. So we'll just do this manually. Now that has screwed up that displacement in a few areas, so we'll just clean this up. And yeah, like I said, we'll do this manually inside of ZBrush. The benefit, like I said, of doing it in Substance Painter would have been just the fact that I could author that red, green, and blue channel all at once, as well as author our color map. But, you know, when things don't go right and I'm doing it on stream, troubleshooting can just not really be worth the effort. So yeah, doing it this way is what we're gonna do. So I'm just gonna come through and clean up and get rid of like this hair, and we'll go in and we'll fix this up inside of ZBrush, kind of a bit more of an old-fashioned way. That's fine. This will still work, just it's going to end up being just a little bit of extra work on my part when it comes to finishing it. So we'll get rid of our details up here. So we are losing poor detail, so we will have to come back and fix that up. We've also got eyebrow detail that I don't want, so eyebrow hair detail. And realistically, this chick, I think, looking at the concept, she's not really got eyebrows in that sense. Okay, so we've got some base paws. So what we need to do now is actually get paw detail that correlates with these areas that we want. So seeing as we're working at the moment just with the green channel, let's come over here and we'll create some like texture samples that we can use. So with our eyebrow, we're just gonna come and create like a texture sample up and around this area here, right? So copy that. And what we can do is create like a new layer here. And potentially we can just take this out into ZBrush, or we can create and make it tileable. So go grab this layer and go image, other offset, try and just find like a bit of the midpoint where it's tiling, like that. Let's create a mask. And we'll grab a soft brush and we'll just kind of paint out our seam here. So we've got like a texture of poor detail around where the eyebrow is. So let's just quickly save this. Let's just call that like eyebrow poor. Okay. Maybe we'll create another. We'll close this while we're here. And figure out where else on our model is kind of hurting. So we're gonna have to fix the lips up. We've got some area around here that we'll need to fix, and areas up and around the ear that we're gonna have to fix as well. So let's grab a sample down here, and we'll do this a few times just to create couple of tileables that we can use. And then one other one that I'm going to use. We've got this neck here. Now is that, I think that might be a diffuse map. What's this other one? I've got two in here. I think this might just be a red and green channel. Yeah, okay. So we'll just grab a sample of the neck up here. You know what, that's gonna be fine if we just save that as. It's a bit big because it's exported in terms of pixels, it's pretty big, so let's just change that to a smaller resolution. And we'll grab as well some up here. Okay, so we've got a couple of just quick pore samples. So we'll come into our alpha and let's just import those, right? So let's go with the eyebrow pores. One thing that we'll have to do if we're going to use this as an alpha, we need to set our mid value to 50, which is like the midpoint. We'll grab our standard brush, choose drag rectangle, and we'll grab our eyebrow pore. And what I might do is create a separate layer for this here. And we can come in and fill out some of this area up here. Let's double check. Okay, because it looks as if it's forgotten that mid-value setting. Set a radial fade as well, which will like kind of blur out the corners of our texture. And let's just quickly delete and create that again. Okay, so that's applying properly. It's probably a little intense though, so we'll change our intensity, just try and match it up. There we go. Just blend in those pores up here. So like what I'm doing, essentially it's what I would have done in Substance Painter for some of it. The benefit is, like I said, I would have had the ability to author the RGB green layers together, and also been able to work with like a tileable rather than having to do it manually. But in terms of just kind of doing this inside a ZBrush, it's going to work. Import, let's grab that side of the head. set a radial fade as well. Maybe turn that up a little bit higher. So the only thing that we do need to potentially just think about is for any pause with like directional flow, just make sure that it does flow with that. Let's quickly turn that off, come back into our original layer, and we might just clean up because I can see there's like some hair detail there still. So the only problem, another issue with doing it this way is just that like layers are a bit kind of slow. It's definitely quicker to have done this inside of Substance, but them's the breaks at the moment. So this is a bit of a generic kind of pour, so I can use this in and around this area here. You can probably see from the original projection that the ear pour potentially is a little bit different, but it's similar enough that in our render it's not going to really be too noticeable. So I'm going to choose to do that there. One thing that I might quickly do is just enable under our brush settings the backface masking. So that we don't project through the ear. We're also going to use this up here. Because this forehead pour and this side of the head pour that I'm using, it's pretty close in terms of its type of pour detail. So it's gonna be fine. Probably going to do this a little bit rush, just to... What's the size of the canvas of this texture? My ideal, because like what I'd want is to take this into Arnold and render it, to make sure I get a good sort of resolution. I'd want probably like a 8K, just to make sure that the pores hold up. So like the pores around the ear, these are probably a little bit intense, so what we could do is once again, you know, jump back and find a pore that's a little bit more accurate. But what I probably will do is just go with this and maybe just soften it with a bit of a blur. generally, yeah, if you're going to use that like texture XYZ to blend in, just sampling a pore that's relative to the area that we're cleaning up is probably the best idea. This should look right, and what I'll probably do is like sculpt over the top of this a little bit because I want to make the ear a little bit more gnarly. Okay, we'll bring a little bit of this down here. And then let's grab our under the neck alpha that we created. So setting it to the mid value just makes it so that it sits on the surface rather than lifts it or pushes it down. And the only thing that's pushing and raising is the detail of the displacement or the alpha that we're using. So yeah, that's probably a little intense for there. So we'll drop our intensity. And just find an intensity that works. And for this here, right, let's try and follow that flow underneath the neck here. Just making sure that pattern doesn't clash. So I've got symmetry on. I'll turn symmetry as I come towards an area like here so that we don't create too much of like a butterfly effect with the alpha. And then turn it back on. To speed this up. Because at the moment this model is she is symmetrical. Once I get to about here, I'll grab the other alpha I made earlier, the neck, because that starts to get a little bit more intense. And we'll just continue this process of applying and creating alpha samples. Now, I might maybe just go a little bit longer with this stream than I normally go, just because we lost a bit of time with our kind of baking these maps, which ended up not really, unfortunately, being as helpful as they could have been, just because I have no idea what is going on with Substance, but I have to troubleshoot, and that was going to take too long to figure out. But what I can do is I can work with my displacement, not displacement, my color map, and we can at least kind of do the process for fixing up that diffuse map. So at least we get an idea of how that works. But yeah, this is working, just it's taking longer than inside of Substance, because in Substance this is just the texture, and we're not actually displacing the model until we bring it into ZBrush, so just a little quicker just to line up our texture and project the detail. Okay, so we've got this area of the chin here, which has kind of gotten lost in our projection. So we can either go and create a texture, or if the pore detail is similar enough, might be able to just reuse our side of the head. As long as it, yeah, kind of reads similar. But we just want to then match the directionality that we're seeing. So one area we probably do want to potentially sample might be the eyelids. Let's just quickly save this. We'll grab where's our navigator? Now, I've got some eyelash detail there that I probably need to come in and clean up. So, jump back into that layer, set it to record, and we'll grab that morph brush and kind of clean that up a little bit more. One of the benefits of doing this in layers is that we do have the ability to adjust the strength of that green channel if you want to push it down a little, if it's too hardcore. Lost a little bit of like that eye line, but I can do that manually in a second by just grabbing the Dame standard. What I wanted was this kind of lumpy sort of eyelid pore. Okay. So we'll just focus in on this part of the face for the moment. So let's create another layer. And I'll use that to gonna grab my Dame standard, and we'll come in and fix up might just reduce our intensity. And I'm also gonna change my lazy mouse because my stroke isn't too clean. Got a bit of a jittery hand at times. Maybe add in a few extra kind of wrinkles in the corner of the eye there. So I'm kind of looking at the wrinkle detail that exists already. I'm just trying to mimic it, and I'm cleaning it up. You know, another thing is our neck. You know, the neck tends to get wrinkle lines, so put in some extra lines around here. We can adjust that strength, right? So if that ends up being a bit too intense, we can come over and adjust the strength of the layer, drop it down a little to blend it in a little bit more. So I either brushed away too much over here, or it didn't project properly, so I'll have to clean that up. I got a bit of a error there, which I've got to fix up as well. But I'm just roughly matching up some of this line detail just on this layer here. So what we might do is let's quickly jump back into Substance Painter, and we'll go over like kind of just doing that, fixing up that displacement or the diffuse. And I'll kind of talk about what I was intending to do with the displacement as well, because we'll get the same idea. So let's launch Substance Painter. Alright, so yeah, I have no idea why my displacements here aren't showing up, because as far as I can tell, they should. Let's just have another quick look while we're here, just to see. Nah, so I... don't know. That's alright. So we'll go through with the base color and just do it that way, because I know that the diffuse... so now the base color isn't showing up, and that's where this is confusing me. What if I throw my diffuse? If I throw that there... okay, so that's interesting because it's working there but not on this layer. So that's fine. So I guess that was just that's so bizarre. Okay. So with that, the fact that that's working, let's just quickly come back and just see if we can set that up then. It's the blue that I need to do. Okay. Yes, I want to paste. Thank you. you know what? I think I know what I've done wrong. That's okay. It's all good. All right, so R, G, and then B, right? So if we jump through our channels now, so that is working now. So that, I have no idea why that was being an issue, but what we've got here is this base layer. So we can kind of go over what I was planning to do. So that's cool. So we've got this base layer. We've got a diffuse channel with the diffuse face that we baked. We've got our red channel. We've got our green, and we've got our blue. So the different layers of displacement. Up here, what I'm going to do is use this here. Okay, so I think the issue is actually that. That's all right. So with our projection tool here, if we come over into our projection, I can load these same channels here, right? So my base color that we from our texture XYZ, under user 2, the red channel, user 2, the green, and user 3 are blue. What that means, right, is as I project my image, it's going to project all 3 of these at the same time. So let's grab a soft brush. And we'll come back into our projection now that this is working. So it's just one of those things, right, where sometimes things don't work and it's kind of, yeah, confusing, but here we are. So the idea here is to use the projection tools inside of Substance Painter to clean up our image, right? So doing it this way means that I can come in, line up our texture, right? And let's turn our symmetry on. See if that just speeds this up a little. Get our thing close, and then like we can project our diffuse. Unfortunately, this computer's a little bit laggy. So as we like say clean up that, right? If we were to take a look, that's done it at the same time. Yes, I think that's why this base gray. There we go. Okay, so it's done it all 3 at once. So what we might do, just trying to line up a texture. Actually, do you know what? We'll do this. Actually, no, that's going to take too long. That's all right. We'll just do it by projecting our diffuse. Sure. What's the question? So it will kind of depend on the instructor and what class you're doing. So most of the classes that I teach are Maya, right? And I'm typically kind of teaching more of a film pipeline in my classes, and industry standard really for film is more Maya. We do have a guy here called Yanni, and he's teaching at the moment like more modeling for games. And in games, right, there's not as strict a pipeline like there is in film, because the end result is kind of like, as long as it works inside of the game engine, it's going to be fine. In which case, like, Yanni uses a lot of Blender because it's an awesome modeling program. So it will kind of depend on the class. In the end, like, 3D modeling theory is the same regardless of the program. So if you can model in Blender, you can model in probably in Maya. You know, there's a few differences, but you do have to be aware, right, that like if you apply for a position at like a film studio, they're more likely not going to be using Blender because it doesn't fit into a pipeline like Maya will, right? Because you're probably going to have your animation pipeline tied up into Maya. So yeah, there is the opportunity to use Blender, but you do just have to be aware that it's not like an industry standard at the moment, just due to its limitations in terms of its pipeline and how it fits into things. I know that in terms of like concept art, the guys that teach the concept classes, they use Blender a lot because Blender's really great for doing concept models, which you then can like paint over. So yeah, they use it. But yeah, when I'm teaching, I'm teaching more. Yeah, I mean, like I said, 3D modeling, the theory is the same, right? Blender's got some awesome 3D modeling tools that are better probably than Maya. It's just, you do want to have an understanding of something like Maya as well as Blender, because potentially when you're going to work, you're going to be required to use Maya, and you don't want to not know it. But as long as you've got like a basic understanding of Maya, if you can model in Blender, that's going to be fine. Because in the end, you know, if you can model, you can probably model in either. But like, yeah, as I was saying, like games is more open because you can model and then export that model to a rigger, and they can rig that model inside of Maya and then animate it, and that model can, or if it's just a prop, right, it can go from Blender straight into like Unreal or Unity, and there's no need for it to then go through that pipeline. So yeah, it's much more forgiving in that way, but you do just need to be aware potentially of, you know, what a job might ask in terms of yeah, knowing Maya. So what we can do as well is, like at the moment, I've just been projection painting. Now, one issue is that we're getting a lot of this repetitive detailing just because I've been limited in the texture space on that face. So one thing that you could also do, right, is let's jump into back into Photoshop, and we'll grab our 3-channel displacement, and I think, you know, it's an RGB because it's got those RGB layers. So what we'll do is we'll create like a texture sample that we can reuse. let's grab our color diffuse. And we'll just paste that over on top of it. Just so that like the color detail matches the pour detail. And then we could create a sample, right? So let's just quickly, we'll just clip that and we'll create a texture sample of, say, the forehead here, right? We'll go the only thing is we want to make sure that this tile, so we go filter, other, offset. Now, one thing I'm wondering, is this doing it per layer? Or is it... Yeah, so that's offsetted just the diffuse. So what we'd want to do is also offset the that there. Let's just quickly come in, kind of just using that. Let's just kind of quickly, roughly paint out that seam. No, this won't match one for one, I don't think. We'll get it close enough. Okay, so let's save out this skin sample. And then let's split up our grayscale here. And we'll just quickly close all these open layers. So I think that was the red channel, so let's call that the reason I'm copying and then pasting that over here, it's just to make sure that, because each individually these are grayscale, whereas combined it's an RGB, so I just want to make sure that when I'm sending this into Substance, these channels individually come in as grayscale. So it's just kind of quick just to copy and paste it into a new file so that Photoshop recognizes that as a grayscale image. Alright, so back in Substance Painter, under our textures, right? Let's grab all those tiles, so skin tile. Just coming into Project Demon Girl, texture, 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 texture. Let's import that. And above this layer, we'll create a new fill. Let's just call that like tile. And we will turn off everything but these channels here. So base color, G, and B. And we need to increase the tile, right? So let's push that up. Say like 16. Then we'll create like a mask. And then we can use that mask to kind of quickly paint in just generic sort of skin in these areas that are going to sit like underneath the hair. And because we're doing this all at once, right? If we look through our channels, it's all happening together. So we're still getting some displacement as we do that. So using the projection of like skin texture, and as well as using like tiles just to quickly create this kind of generic base skin. With some displacement in an area that's like less important, right? Now, the only thing we might need to do is you have to be aware of like the color being potentially different, right? Because we've got this forehead, it's a bit red, so potentially we'll need to like color adjust the skin tone so it matches, say, the skin of the neck, get it kind of similar tone. We can do that through like adjustment layers. Now I'm being really rough down here. Ideally what we'd want to do is go onto like texture XYZ and get a scan, like, so texture XYZ, so awesome resource. And what we've got on there is like, in terms of like skin, like there's different parts of the body, so we'd want to get like displacement for like the chest, or different parts of the body, and put those in the right place. And there's also like photo sets of like skin that we can also get. The skin isn't too in terms of like the diffuse, it's not as important, because the diffuse, we can paint the diffuse manually, and like, all we need is like a skin tone really for it to look alright. But you'd want to make sure that the displacement is correct. So I haven't actually got a chest on me at the moment, so the displacement that I'm going to get from this is not going to be the same. In terms of like fixing the skin up so it's more interesting, like we can just add layers over the top and kind of manually paint it, or project skin detail from other parts of the face that I do have. But you can see, right, like we just want to avoid the repetitiveness that we're getting there. So what I might do is let's like either duplicate that, create a new mask, and we can try and like just paint out some of this area, kind of just blend it, at least in terms of the diffuse. What we'll do is with that channel, because we've already got like the neck detail, we can turn off these extra displacement so it doesn't conflict in the displacement, but we can try and paint out and blend in the skin tone. Now, like another thing that we want to do is let's fix up while we're here. We'll come back into our projection layer, and we'll keep projecting our textures. I just want to remove our eyebrows, so just kind of lining up this area up here. I'm just gonna paint that out. So one minor thing that makes using Substance, just like Substance projection tools aren't as nice as Mari's. Like, so Mari, you've got the ability to wrap your texture around your model, because what it does is it saves your projection into a buffer, whereas with Substance you've got to just kind of manually line things up a little bit more. So Substance is great. Once they fix some of this projection stuff, it will be even better. That's a bit naff in there, isn't it? So let's undo that. We can clean that up manually. We've already got a bit of a displacement happening in inside of ZBrush. Let's try and fix up our lips a little. What we can also do is turn off our perspective and work with the orthographic. Just try to fix up the displacement on the lips. Push it down a little bit more. Yeah, so it's really about getting our maps in the right spot. But the cool thing about doing it this way is that it is doing our diffuse with our displacement at the same time, which is what we weren't getting when we were doing this inside of ZBrush. We're just getting the displacement. Okay, so, you know, there's work to do, but I think we're starting to get the idea. And yeah, if we look through our channels, we're starting to get... Now, actually, that's interesting. That's because I turned off my user channels there. Let's turn those off. There we go. What we could then do, right, is come up and start like doing some color adjustments to our color. So set that to a pass-through layer. And we'll add in a filter. And let's add a HSL node. And we'll we can desaturate the color, try to start pulling it more to this like undead sort of color. So, I think we've gone kind of 30 minutes over. But what I'll quickly do is just kind of show you like taking this out of Substance Painter and into ZBrush. So it's not finished, but go to our export textures. What we'll do is let's come to our templates here. I'm just going to grab this PBR metal rough and let's just like create a duplicate. And let's name that like example. and we'll come in, and I don't want my base color. I'm not doing a roughness at the moment. And what I do want is I want a gray. I want to put user 0, user 1. No, it was user 2 and user 3. Let's just call that diff R, G, and V. Export that out as 8K. Let's use that example, and let's just export that here. Now, actually, I've exported that out as an EXR. One thing you've got to know, actually, I'm not sure if what I exported that out as. ZBrush won't let you bring in anything higher than 16-bit. So if that's exporting out as a 32-bit, that's something we've got to change. Having it autosave while that's exporting is not the greatest thing in the world. In fact, I'm thinking it's probably crashed because of that, which is very stupid, to be honest. Yeah, alright. So what we'd then want to do, right? Unfortunately, it looks like Substance has kind of stabbed us in the back a bit. But that would export out. Oh no, there we go. Cool. Quickly, let's just go back into our settings. Okay. That's actually exactly, it was doing it as a PNG. Now, taking a look, did that manage to do it? Yes, RG. Cool, so we've got our maps there, that's alright. So if we come back in here, that's the wrong one, that's the chest. Okay, it didn't get through doing the face, that's annoying. So let's go back. I cancelled it, I think, at the wrong second. Or actually, the issue is I think I killed... No, there it is, diffuse PNG. Interesting. So why don't I see that? There it is. Alright, so at the moment, the only issue is that because we are working with UDIMs, that's not bringing that in correctly. But yeah, I think we can kind of get the idea. So I've gone over a little bit in terms of the stream. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep working on this in my own time, but let's just kind of get up close, right? And let's turn our eyes on. And let's just kind of do just a very kind of quick close-up render. Just to kind of see, no, what is that? That's just a spare. So let's get rid of that. That should work okay as a just do a quick PBR render, just kind of see how that poor detail is holding up. So like with that substance technique, it really is just about being really kind of careful and clean with your projection. So doing it inside of ZBrush, in a lot of ways, like you're going to get better potential placement of displacement. It then just means exporting this out and creating a texture from that displacement inside a substance. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I'm going to do for the moment. But you get an idea of how that's starting to come along. So yeah, the idea is to keep working on that, and I'll update you guys as that progresses. Cool.